Okay, I need an approval of the minutes from the June 27th emergency call meeting. I need motion.
So moved.
Thank you. Tim, second.
Second.
Thank you, Tony. Any discussion? All in favor of approving these minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. All right, adoption of the agenda. I need a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, agenda is adopted. Mayoral comments, I just want to say thank you all for coming, and I love it when all our citizens show up and participate in this process. It helps us. I also want to thank our employees who all helped our wonderful intern from youth planning. She was a breath of fresh air. And you all the employees went well out of their way to help Julia. She told me during her goodbye ceremony that her time at the city and was just fabulous, that she realized how fortunate we all are here to live in America and that we should appreciate it. She also said that, this is for the women in the group, that she thought all the women of South Valley looked a whole lot younger than they really were. She was saying about the men, she was saying and that she would never forget everybody's kindness here in South Valley. So I appreciate y'all, the employees, especially the City Hall employees, really went out of their way for her, and we will miss her. All right, any remarks from the council?
Just to say, I said everything I had to say in our earlier meetings, so maybe I'll shut up. Get that right.
Get that
I second that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we're gonna get going. Jason, would you present your city manager's report, please?
Mayor, council, everyone in attendance, everyone participating via Zoom, good morning. I know we're suffering from a little bit of meeting fatigue, so I'll be as brief as I can here. Since we didn't have a meeting in July, I just want to thank everybody again for the Independence Celebration, all the volunteers, etc. Wonderful time, and we expect next year to be bigger than ever. I want to just really quick, I know they had to leave, but I wanted to just acknowledge our public works guys. We had a major water line break last week on Ridgepole. It happened about 11:55 a.m. Literally, as they were getting ready to get lunch, so they had to put lunch plans on hold. Actually, they put supper plans on hold. They didn't get done until 9 o'clock. The guys stayed to get it done. Thank you for that, what they did there. We have, just to let everybody know, we've installed a dash camera in our garbage truck. We're looking at possibly doing that in some other vehicles as well, just for safety and monitoring. There are some things that our risk management folks have said we've got to start doing. I'm gonna talk about it a little bit later, so I'll stop there. But again, that's something we've done. The Georgia Mountain Regional Commission has finished by and large part of our water mapping. Now it's up to us to do the ground penetrating radar. Because of short staffing, they really haven't had a chance to really get on it like they want to. But as we get into the fall time, as a lot of the crowds go down, that's kind of become job one to get that done, because that's really going to make a good mapping system, a great mapping system. And again, this water mapping system is kind of a basis or bedrock of what we hope to one day be. We call it GIS, or Geographic Information System. Recently, I sent you a little snapshot of our financial status as of August. As you all know, we run January to December fiscal year. We should be around 64% on expenditures. We're about at 68. Look, some of that skewedness is basically we had some big first of the year upfront expenditures, one time a year expenditures. That kind of throws things out, but it's kind of stabilizing. We've taken in approximately 99.6% on property tax this year. I want to thank Monica and the staff for really the proactivity and going after that. I think last year, this time, we were about 95%. On the revenue side, we're about 103% of anticipated revenue, so we're actually a little above and beyond. And we do have some other revenue sources should be coming in the year. So looking pretty good. We continue to closely monitor expenditures, as we all know. Everything is costing more. But anyway, we do have a 24 draft. As we get closer, I'm sure we have work sessions that require public hearings. And we bring that out, publicizing that in the next few months. Typically, the past couple of years, the budget's been approved around the September, October frame, so we'll get to that mode very soon. Received a quote from Georgia Power to install a street light at the bottom of Evergreen where it connects the crusher. We were awaiting a quote from True Vista. We found out that they cannot provide us internet there, so we're exploring other options. Whether that be Windstream, we're looking into a trail cam. We've had a little bit of issues there as far as people shooting their signs and some other things, but we are looking at doing something there and also putting a street light there. True Vista, speaking of True Vista, they have provided us some quotes to install some internet-based cameras, primarily for the post office, to be the compactor. Those prices came a little pricey. I'm gonna talk to them about that, so we kind of negotiate that, or either we're gonna look at either Windstream or something like that, but we certainly need the cameras that compact, they feed to a laptop inside the tractor shed. It does not feed, but we can see that, but, we are trying to, it would be nice to be able to catch violators, because we do, it is problematic, and it is costly to the city when we have to go and deal with this thing, so, speaking of the post office, to continue growth, as many of y'all may know, we're out of boxes. We have had conversations with the post office, the postmaster. When the post office building was built years ago, the agreement was the postal service would provide the boxes, we would do the buildings, do the maintenance. I had a conversation with the local postmaster to revisit that original agreement. I'm waiting for them to find out when they can get the boxes to us. I've already had a couple conversations with contractors. We're on pause, ready to go. We're thinking that we can get an additional 60 boxes. The city's growing, but we're gonna have to put them at the front. But hopefully, once we find out where we can go with that, we're ready to go. So
I know you sent him an email. Did you get a response?
I did not, I have not, but we did speak with a couple contractors, and probably on the city side, between $2,000 to $3,000 to do the renovations to the building. And, but I just want people to know that we are aware we have boxes, and we're doing everything we can to make that happen. Fall Fest, October 21st, planning is already underway, third Saturday. And then, it's not to echo what the mayor said, but our intern, Yulia, she did leave. It's my understanding she is now in Hilton Head, South Carolina, and she's exploring some opportunities. Of course, one of the goals of an internship is to try to parlay that into gainful employment. So if anybody's looking for somebody that has a background in marketing, I think she speaks 3 languages, she does interpretation. And I think a little bit of, she now maybe speaks 4 languages, because she sent us a message the other day, she said, I miss y'all. So she speaks 4 languages now, so anyway, if anybody's looking for somebody, we would be glad to kind of provide information over. That's all I really have, Madam Mayor. If it's okay with you, I'm sorry.
The council.
Right here.
Go.
I'm not in favor of putting the street light out in the middle of the woods.
Okay.
And I think none of those people live up to that pressure run. They may have a house light, but for us to put a light out there, I think it's not the right thing to do for our neighbors.
Well, at this time, all we have is a price. We have not done anything, but just wanted to share that. And
Hey, can I ask you another
Yes,
question?
sir.
I concur with Tim on that.
I noticed up in our year-to-date budget, a lot of our overages is for the repairs and maintenance category. In the general building services and in the public works. What have we, what's costing, what were those?
deferred maintenance, age, just cost, availability.
With our new trucks, with our new trucks and equipment, is that gonna?
Well, some, not so much that, but some of our older equipment, some of the just people like Rick Barron, as far as from the water side, that's very expensive. That's very, it's just, everything's
So
going up.
we're gonna budget a little bit more for that this year.
We are, yes, sir.
Okay. I'm done.
Take tail of that. Based on the bullet holes in the signs, I'm sure that light down there would last maybe a day. But could we, put cameras somewhere on Evergreen coming in, for security? I don't know. It seems to me we had a camera at the front entrance at one time, and I think it went away for whatever reason.
Well, we look, we could put a trail cam that kind of captures motion, or one of those type of cameras. It's gonna capture everything, every vehicle that comes and goes. Of course, we probably would want that, but if we had something that had streaming, if we came in on a, something at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday, there's no bullet holes, and at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, they are, we know where to go back to that camera and see what during that time, whereas if it's a trail cam or a static cam where it takes photos, you're gonna have to check that constantly, so it's,
That's why we were talking to the internet companies to see if we could get some sort of Wi-Fi or internet back there. That's what we were talking
but yeah, that would be nice. I mean, I think, I'm not even gonna speculate who it was, but I mean, I haven't counted the bullet holes, but I really haven't noticed any new ones.
Based on the pattern, I put money on where it came from.
So does the chief have a ghillie suit? You could go down there and hide wood.
That opens up a different story I can share if you wish to.
No, we
I
got.
think there was somebody's Bigfoot suit one time anyway.
There you go.
But, any other questions on my report?
Okay,
Good report, man.
I was gonna, Madam Mayor, Mr. Shope and Mr. English, our public works senior staff, they apologize, they had to leave, they've had an issue actually with one of our older trucks that you asked about. I think we're very thankful for the newer replacement equipment, but one of our older vehicles, something they're having to deal with, and we have state inspections tomorrow as well, so we're trying to make sure we get that done. Anyway, Corbin Jerry, just busy time of year, culverts, culvert repair, road maintenance. Well, I wrote this down, so I get kind of wing what he said, as I apologize. Culverts, tree trimming, road striping, I know, go back, you said Pleasant Mountain. We are, the Saddleback, that part of the world. I can't think of his last name, the guy who's done a lot of our striping, does a great job, great price. He is supposed to be here, I believe, next week, to look at doing some of those striping, and a lot of your cost is the mobilization. So we'll definitely see what he can add Pleasant Mountain to that, get those. And what we're talking about is the fog line or the edge line running along the road. They do wear out over time, and so we'll definitely see if we can get that taken care of as well. But again, Jerry, apologize that they just, busy time of year, and they are down staff. We hope to have one of our staff people back that got injured. He's had a slow recovery, and we are down in position. However, we do have a couple of potential candidates. They can just pass the drug screen, no host there.
Is it a written test?
Sure.
okay, you want to,
Yeah, we have a chief here. I'm this man, yeah.
Jason, when you get the striping tape, let me know. I have an internet for all the neighbors, and we'll tell them, get their cars down to the lodge, and then you can stripe.
Yeah, we'll definitely get the word out. We'll get a notification, put out a MailChimp, but it will be, in other ways, we'll let folks know to make sure that,
They move
the
it.
steer clear. Also, they kind of need to have unobstructed people coming and going. So, but, typically they can do that pretty quickly. Yeah, we'll definitely make sure we get the word out for that.
it's kind of cool, he's on this, like, it looks like a riding lawnmower when he
Yes.
does this thing. He does
And it dries fairly quickly.
Yeah, it does.
We'll definitely make sure it's.
All right, so how about Jim and?
Well, which one do you care to go first? Jim or Chief?
Chris, as we discussed, we're in full swing right now. The seasonal people, especially up here, cleaning up their properties, getting permits, small repairs, new roofs, new tree permits, so it's been really, really busy. Nuisance complaints as well have picked up, particularly overgrown weeds, vegetation, grass. As a matter of fact, I got a meeting this afternoon with some homeowners that want to discuss how we arrived at a nuisance complaint. A lot of times we get in anonymous calls. I've asked staff if they could to try and get, the names, because we do have people, from time to time, residents, that it's contentious, they want to know what's the complaint. So, but anyway, that's picked up. I started the preliminary steps on some potential condemnations on some properties. One of them, a lot of you may be familiar with it, on Rebel Circle, there was a fire last September. As a matter of fact, just coincidentally, I met yesterday with some potential buyers. They're actually under contract. And they're looking at, they're doing their due diligence, and we walked the property and,
Of the house that caught on
of the
fire.
house that caught on fire.
Great.
And he also happens to be a demolition professional, and so he's looking at doing that himself. And they're looking at either trying to salvage the back portion of the house, which there is some good lumber and some wall structure and ceilings in the back, or just completely rebuild. So another one I'm looking
Where
at
again
is
is that, John?
On Rebel Circle.
Rebel Circle.
Ray House.
Tom Ray.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of you are familiar with it. There's also one right next door, which belongs to the timeshare, and it's been abandoned for quite a while. And again, these both came about as a result of, I know, Mayor, a few months ago, you had some complaints. And recently, we've had some more complaints about people saying that, potential hazards, safety hazards, maybe, kids, if they happen to, anybody that happens to stop under, they could really get injured or worse. And then, the last one I'm looking at is a home on Breckenridge. Apparently, one of the neighbors, filed a complaint and said that, there was a tree that fell on the deck. But when I went up there to inspect it, it's much worse than that. I mean, the deck is completely collapsed, one part of the garage wall, and I don't think the tree had anything to do with that. There is no wall. There's mold everywhere. The weeds are this high. And then the ironic thing is the resident that owns it, I talked to her, it's an inheritance from last year. She told me that she comes up 3 or 4 times a year, and when I checked with the records with staff, they haven't had the water turned on since 2016. So I'm kind of curious what they do when they come up here. But anyway, again, so we're talking to Doug, talking to the city manager here to make sure that we follow the proper steps to for condemnation to be made.
Right.
And recently, I met with the 3 new property owners, and one of them is imminent as far as filing an application for a new build, and the other 2 are looking into it hopefully before the end of the year, so we're looking at some new construction. And then lastly, there's continuing ongoing progress for the 911 signs, and we've had a lot of people put up the signs and still have some work to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, great report, and we appreciate all you do, you work hard. He's out now 24/7 call, like
Whatever you say, you do it.
Yeah, right after they call me, they call you. Okay, thank you. Chief, it doesn't matter, you do it where.
I'd hate to make a big, look at mad if I say that. Well, I know it's a marathon meeting, I'll keep this real short and brief. Just want to hit on a couple of topics that you may or may not be aware of, and I've kind of got them bullet pointed here so we can go through them quick. I changed my presentation here, so. First of all, y'all can probably imagine we've had a drastic increase of the number of people that we serve. Okay, where that comes into play, and the fire chief can explain to us. Okay, when you look at Sky Valley, we have a very tiny number of registered voters. And that's what a lot of stuff that comes to us is based on is, well, what's your population? And they look at that number. Well, so if we went on that, yeah, 1 officer at a time is perfect. But when you look at the people on a day-to-day basis that we serve, we're up over 1,000, maybe 2,000 people on weekends that we're actually serving, because we're seeing that, as you all have talked about, the increase of people. So when we have to do these surveys of the number of people we serve, and then they look at our resources from everything from equipment to budget to manpower to things like that, we are failing drastically. That's just something that we have to do on our national surveys to verify that, you know, we're a legitimate town, agency, and that kind of thing. So I'm sure you're probably seeing the same thing on the fire services side. But I just wanted to bring that up before we get into some other things right here. Along with that, the amount of training they're requiring us has increased. So our budget for our training and our travel for training and all of that is going up, and they're mandating these new trainings. So we don't get an option. You guys are seeing this as well as the EMTs are seeing this mandated training now. And that's good, but getting quality people is hard enough as it is. So just keep all of that in mind as we move a little bit further. Recently, what we've been having a lot of is wildlife calls, snakes, to be specific, snake calls. If you haven't noticed them on your property, just take my advice that they're there. Some houses I've been to 4, 5, 10 times with copperheads. And if you're not familiar with a copperhead, you will step on them without seeing them because they perfectly match the leaves. So keep your porch, your stoop, your step, your parking area blowed very well. I was at a house the other day where it was they had everything blowed, but the snake was right there in the crevice of the parking pad and the step up, right there in that crack. He was there. Well, when they blew the area, that's where the leaves collected, and he was there. No one saw him until they almost stepped on him. And as a matter of fact, to make it worse, there's the snake over there, and I've got my little hoe, you know, where? He's over there. Well, I don't see him, so I start walking over there. They never noticed it, but he had moved over to here. So as I'm walking over here to look for him, he is now behind me because I'm following your instructions. That was my mistake. I shouldn't have listened to him. I should have done a complete area scan, but they're that easy to miss. And they're out, they're everywhere. Be aware. You know, we got the bear aware. I don't know how we can't make it rhyme with snake aware. I don't know. But mothballs work fabulously. If you're having that issue, try some mothballs.
Bruce says snake awake.
Snake away is great until it rains and then it's gone. Okay, mothballs take longer to dissolve. They don't dissolve immediately like snake away will do or something like that, but snake awake might be a great little jingle we can use. Just to make people aware. Speaking of bear aware, the bears are out. This is their time of the year. They love it. Yogi's gonna have a picnic, so don't put food in your trash cans. Constantly, the pickleball court trash cans, the dumpster right there beside the old laundry going up to the chapel, hit on a nightly basis. As well as we had the other day, I believe, Dustin's not in here. One of the houses on Ridgepole, the bear got into the in-ground can. Don't know how he did it, but he got into the in-ground can and it was there for bear. So just be aware about putting food products. And when we have visitors come here who've never been to the mountains before, they don't understand. Y'all have bears? I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. Yes, we have bears. So they're putting bags of garbage with food in it right by their door. You open the door, set the bag down, and then they wake up in the middle of the night scared because they heard something. It's a bear at the door. Ah! Just be bear aware. Okay, enough of that. Now let's get into something that we've been asked about here recently. And I believe me and Ms. Kobacker had a conversation about this not too long ago, about our AEDs, our defibrillators. As you all know, we keep 2 at the police department. We've been trying to buy, these things are incredibly expensive, so we've been trying to get some more. But you remember a couple of years ago, we worked with a couple of places. I believe we worked with the timeshare, the chapel, and I'm not sure if the country club was in on this or not, but to put AEDs in these locations where people will gather. They're very expensive, but we do have 2, and they're about, Ken can give you a definition of this, but they're over 12 years old. So they were the top of the line when they were bought, but now they're 12 years old. We're having issues getting the pads because the pads expire. So every 18 months roughly, you have to change them out. Well, ours are so old that we're having trouble finding pads without going to second level like eBay to
Chief
find.
Estes, I think the Scott Valley POA is talking about the possibility of donating, and they're going to get with the chief as to what to get. And so we're hoping to take care of that problem.
As a matter of fact, Mr. Gillespie, no, Gillespie, for those of you who know him, he and I was talking about that the other day, and he was excited about that, and he said he was gonna reach out to the POA, but he wanted to know what we did currently have. I said, we have two, they work, they get tested annually, we have to change out the batteries, the pads, whether they need it or not, we have to change them. We have to receive annual training on them every year, everyone does. And we do have two, y'all have several, I know there's one at the chapel and I believe at Timeshare. So they are around town, but it would be nice, and I believe it was last year, we looked at getting one for each police car and also one for the supervisor of public works' truck, as well as one to be maintained here at City Hall, because we have people here all day. So, but when you start adding that up at anywhere between $2,000 to $5,000 a machine, it gets quite enormous. But yes, so those are the people who have been asking, yes, we do have them, yes, that there is staff that is trained and they're spread out throughout the town. As well as kind of segueing off that is the Senior Watch Program, the POA is running that, they've got it up, so if you're not a member, please reach out to them. Sharon can help you get the forms, it's voluntary. All it is you give them your information, so if there's a crisis at your residence, someone can come and help you. Okay, so, you know, we like to advocate for everyone to get with them and join that if possible. The next big one is parking in town. As you all know, it's a big issue that we're dealing with. We've dealt with this. This isn't just new. For those of you that are just now starting to hear about it and pay attention, we've dealt with this since I got here. Okay, so it's nothing new. We ran everything that we do and how we do it by our local judge, our district attorney, and I've even reached out to friends of mine at the Attorney General's office. And they're all in agreement that we're doing what we can do with what we got. But a lot of people seem to want us to do things differently, and some of the stuff we're just not, quite frankly, allowed to do. And we will address that later if we need to. But that goes into the issue, for example, the house fire that you just talked about. When that house burnt, getting back to Ken's earlier statement about windows and all that, we had to get the person out of the house and into the car parked in the drive for protection because there were so many cars in the driveway, you couldn't get him out of there and he was unable to walk. And fire personnel had difficulties getting to the house to fight the fire because there's so many cars in the way. We also see that issue with ambulances, trying to get a gurney up a driveway like this. The ambulance crew has to walk straight up steep driveways with a gurney, and now we have to load a body and get them down because there's no way to access the house. So yes, we're aware of that. We deal with this on a daily basis. They deal with this on a daily basis, but you know, there's only so much that we can do. But yes, we are aware of it. Now, speaking on what Jim mentioned earlier about the 911 signs at the driveways. Well, we're in the process, I believe we've got it fixed with Valley View condos. If anyone here is from Valley View. The problem that we've had multiple times, and I'm going to use Valley View because I've worked directly with them and they identified this problem as a huge problem. If you or your spouse has a medical emergency, how do you call for help? Most people grab their cell phone and dial 911 and dispatch gets all the information, but you're panicked. I'm in Sky Valley, I'm in a condo. Okay, what's the address? I don't know. What's the road name? I don't know. Okay, normally it's not a problem. They look at where you're calling from, but your phone comes back to Ocala, Florida. But it's your cell phone. They have no idea where to send someone. Sky Valley, we got 37 miles of roads. How do I find you? The incident that brought this to light here recently was at Valley View when they said, I'm in Valley View condos. You know how many condos are there? A lot. Well, the numbers on the building, the numbers above the door, and the numbers that we were given, none of it matched. So we had to go door to door until we found the people needing help. So they renumbered their buildings, they put up signs and things of that nature. The way to remedy that is take an old-fashioned telephone and plug it into the wall and say, that's what you use. Because that number will tell dispatch where you are. You don't have to have phone service. It's free. You don't have to call AT&T, Ma Bell, or anyone. That jack will work for 911. So spread the word. Plug an old-fashioned phone into that jack. You do not have to have service. If that jack should be hot, and if it's not, pick it up, test it, dial 911. If they don't answer, then you need to notify 911 that you tried that and it didn't work. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, call us. Because we had several condos at Valley View where someone went in and cut the wires. Don't know why. They were working on something, trying to add internet to the buildings. We don't know. All we know is the jacks on a couple of them did not work. They were cut. So, but if your jacks are working, you don't have to have phone service to place a 911 call. And it gives them your specific address. Now, keep in mind, some of your addresses may come up, like, for example, you live on Ridgepole. I live on Alice. Okay, 911. It may come back to Sungrove Hill Drive or Elite Drive, because some of our roads had different names formerly. And it's just never been properly changed. We changed it, put up new signs. Like, for example, the other day, we had a call on Evergreen. I have to get into a third or fourth time heated argument, explaining to them that, yes, there is a road in Sky Valley named Evergreen. Mapping hasn't added it to their CAD system, so they didn't know anything about where is this road. And I have to tell them, I've even delivered a hand-drawn map down there. Anyway, long story short, trying to get fire, EMS, police to you, make sure that you know that your equipment works and all of that, because more and more people that are coming to our town have never been here. They never heard of Sky Valley until they saw, oh, it's cheap and it's on Airbnb an hour from the casino. Boom, book it. They get lost getting here. When they get here, they don't know how to get out of here. And then when they need an ambulance or something, they don't even know how to tell you where they're at. And unfortunately, that's where we're at right now. So those are the kind of things that we're dealing with right now on a growing basis. And it's not like there's a learning curve, because a lot of these people are one-time only visitors. They're here for 3 or 4 days and they're gone. So by the time they figure it out, they're gone. The next people that comes in starts all over. So we're dealing with that. I know you guys are getting frustrated with the same things, but that's kind of what we're dealing with. And I'll keep it at that. Does anyone have any questions, comments?
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm glad to know you have a snake hole. That's something I learned today.
Yes, I did say that. I want to see.
Okay. Let's move on to the next agenda item, and that is to consider to appoint Lynn Menard replacing Roberta Walton as the Sky Valley. What? Oh, committee report. Dang, sorry. Thank you. Keep me straight, Tim. Gordon, take it.
Great.
Keep it
Thank
short.
you, thank you.
Keep it
30
short.
seconds.
Yeah,
30 seconds, yeah. Again, good morning. I just want a brief update on what marketing is doing. Doug Holland with Golf Life last week arranged for Alan Darty, who's a publisher of EastSouthernGolf.com, to visit us last Wednesday, Thursday, and he accompanied with his wife, who's a golfer. And it was very good. They're from Orlando, and they had a very good visit. Just to give you a very brief what's going on, we had a scramble because of the short-term notice we had to do, but we got it done. We met on Wednesday morning here, they were a little late. Monica showed them the kiosk, how it worked, and was very impressed. Gave them a little gift on it here in terms of the basket, and they toured the area and they were impressed. From that, we went in, I wanted to check you with the housing. There was no housing available at this time because of the short term. And one of our good friends, Gail Greenfelder, she offered at no cost to us to provide 2 nights of housing. And of course, we're knowing Gail, she does a wonderful job, Gail Greenfelder. So she did that. After that, we had the afternoon, we went Wednesday afternoon down to the club and croquet. They'd never played croquet before, and it been an hour and a half, and they loved the croquet, got a chance to play it, and there was a lot of, it was wine and wickets night, lots of people down there, and they got to see the people, love, friendly people. From that, then they had dinner at the club, and there again, the club provided all the meals. In this case here, there was an area we had dinner, I think it was at, over at the corner, so it was good, they were worked out. The following morning, we're supposed to have golf, but we know Wednesday night, Thursday, it was a torrential storm. We looked down there, oh my God, 8:45, the golf course is covered with water, it's like a lake. So we rechanged things around and had the tour, and I don't know if the POA provides usually a tour of the city, and they show the highlights of the city. In this case here, Jeannie again provided the tour of it, her husband couldn't do it, got to see the sights. The amazing thing is.
That was Jenny
Yeah,
Smith.
Jeannie Smith, yes, Jeannie
Okay.
Smith, and she did a great job. Tom wasn't feeling well at the time, and the highlight again, as we drove around, looked at housing, loved the housing, of course, Mud Falls. They love Mud Falls, and you know, it's spectacular, all the water coming down. The amazing thing is, you got the message that we're trying to get off, well, they had on sweaters, it was about, and I didn't think much of it, it was cool down there, and they sent it back to their kids in Orlando, they couldn't be, Mom, what are you wearing sweaters for? You know, Orlando, 97 degrees down there, and we're at 58, 59, so the message coming back, we're trying, is the highest. And that worked out well, and then had lunch at the club, and then we worked to play golf. Of course, we came here to look at the golf course. And we had a couple of our golfers, Jim Long and Jim Greenfield, they offered to play with them. And at 1 o'clock, they played it, and they stayed a magnificent round. They loved the golf course, of course, it doesn't. So it was the golfers. And after golf, then we went back and we had dinner at the club. And the highlights of it, what we try to do for marketing is get involved, get to see what the Southern hospitality is like, and it was. Had a lot of people at the clubhouse, they met at the table, and good time, good food, and as we left, and then Friday morning I left, and we said, what do you think of the spec holidays? The highlights of it is, what are we trying to do in marketing? Coolest and highest, you know, they're gonna spread the report on us, coolest and highest. Mountain friendly people, you hear this over and over again, and then a lot of other things to do. Kayaking, so we're trying to put the same message across. So it's a very, very good, very, very good event for us, and of course, in terms of our cost, little cost, marketing committee. That's it.
Thank you,
Any
Gordon.
questions?
Thank you,
That's
Gordon.
it.
All right, special projects, Bruce.
Yeah, very quickly, first of all, want to thank the marketing committee for helping on funding to advertise the upcoming Fall Fest, which we are currently in the planning stages. Other than that, we've had one meeting, and I'm going to schedule another one today for the end of this month or the first of next month. But Wi-Fi at the pavilion, because we went to the city, or I'm sorry, the club, to see if we could get the vendors over there by the club pavilion, and they turned us down. So we're going to have the vendors over at the city pavilion. And we'll make sure we have Wi-Fi available for them so that they can charge on their phones. Last year, the vendors were in the parking lot of the CBC, the lodge, and we have, the CBC has Wi-Fi that just so happened it was out that day, so nobody could charge. So it was a little bit of an inconvenience, but that's the only other thing I've got. Wi-Fi at the city pavilion, and thanks for the marketing committee for that help on the advertising.
Thank you. And we cannot say thank you enough to all the volunteers in our city. We just couldn't do the business we do without our citizen committees. And I certainly, for one, and I know I speak to the council, we appreciate all that you all do for us. Okay, quickly, now we're gonna go to the next item, where we need to consider approval to appoint Lynn Menard to replace Roberta Walton on the marketing committee. As you know, we have representatives from each of the three entities that tie into our marketing committee, and that's the city, the club, and the POA. So Lynn would be one of the representatives on the marketing committee from the club. I need a motion to appoint Ms. Menard to the marketing committee.
I would like to make the motion that we accept Lynn Menard
Thank you,
to
Jim.
the marketing committee.
All right, thank you, Bruce. Any discussion?
Just
All
that I
in favor?
have,
Go ahead.
I have observed Lynn working on civic and volunteer activities for many years. She's very conscientious. She loves Sky Valley. She's great at it. I'm glad she's doing the marketing committee, so she doesn't work her fingers to the bone like she has in the past. I think she's gonna be great.
Thank you, Jim, and I appreciate your comments, and I agree 100%. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, the motion to appoint Ms. Menard to the marketing committee is approved. All right. Now, the next item is consider approval of the ordinance of the short-term rental regulations, and this will be like an introduction or the first reading. How far do we have to do details for first reading?
Just read the heading of it. It's been posted here at City Hall, and I believe it's been posted
All right,
online.
Jason, you got it? Well, read it. Let's hear your.
Is it on the, we pull up, Sharon?
Okay. You want Tim to read it?
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter to me.
All right, Big Tim, go.
An ordinance to establish regulations for the porch for the short-term rental within the city of Sky Valley, Georgia. To promote public health, safety, and welfare, to provide safety and operational standards, administration, licensing, penalties, and enforcement.
That's enough, yeah.
Okay, we had a wonderful, over an hour discussion with the council, people online, and people participating in our meeting, last hour. Are there any other comments or questions from the council? Okay, anybody in the peanut gallery? Anybody online? All right, well then we will consider this our first reading. We will have the second reading in our September council meeting, which is September the 19th, at which point we will gather more information from everybody, answer questions and comments. And then later on in the meeting in September, we will hold the vote to approve this ordinance.
I have a quick question too, and it refers back to the parking, based on Chief's, explanation. As far as the Ray home not being able to get close to the house for either emergency or fire. I mean, is there a parking threshold for full-time people parking, third-party rentals or rentals, to mitigate the possibility of a hazard if there's a fire or an emergency that emergency vehicles can't get close to the house because there's too many cars?
On private property, we're extremely limited on what we can do.
As long as they're not in the right of way or in the street.
Absolutely, and then there's provisions even governing that. But the biggest issue is really for Ken's people as well as the EMTs. Because I pull up, I can run up a driveway and get to a house. I'm out of breath when I get there and I can do so much. But when the ambulance is trying to get there, get the gurney up or the defibrillator or some heavy equipment and that driveway straight up, that becomes an issue. And then getting the person down and then down through there, especially, imagine, covered with ice. So we do battle that. Ken, do you have any input on that?
I really don't have any input on it. I mean, it's the cost of doing business, having property here in Sky Valley. If you got a windy driveway straight up the hill and you got 20 cars parked in it, you have a heart attack, bummer. Not our problem. We do the best we can with what you give us to deal with. That's just it. And like you said, once it's on private property, we got nothing to say about it. On that aspect, if there's cars in the street and I need to get a fire truck through, it's the old adage, I got enough gas the first year for 2 vehicles. it's gonna move. And if-
Just two?
At a time.
Stack them up, I don't care. If they're over the white line and I can't get a truck through, they will no longer be over the white line.
Well, I know that the police do a wonder, I love the procedure that you use where you actually put out fluorescent tape to help bring the people in to find the house, because our GPS system is so bad. When you do that, then I assume you go to the house, you're there waiting for them?
Yes, we don't always do the breadcrumb trail, because if I'm setting up on Knob Drive and the call's on Alex Mountain, I need to get to Alex Mountain. I don't need to drive all the way down here and escort an ambulance driver whose duty it is to know their terrain and their streets. So no, we don't always do that, but yes, we will respond and we will lay the trails. But we're lucky now because most of our ambulance drivers know our roads now. When I got here, they didn't.
All right, so essentially, you could ask the people to move their cars before the ambulance gets there.
We do, and in, for example, the Ray House, we got 2 of the 3 cars out of the driveway.
Right.
But fire trucks are pulling up, okay, we did what we could do.
I understand.
Yeah.
We do what we can do, and I appreciate all the services that you.
And we do use neighbors' driveways as well sometimes.
Hey, if you use mine anyway, if you use mine. Okay. Where are we? So we are through with our first reading of the short-term rental. All right, now we're going to consider approval to amend the Sky Valley solid waste ordinance. We're on the fee ordinance.
Yes.
And as our auditor demonstrated us today, we are offering city services and not charging enough to cover these services. So I thought that was one of the reasons we brought up the fee ordinance, besides the fact that it's about 42 years old, maybe not quite that much. It needed to be redone anyway, and also with the short-term rental fees. So we decided to bring this, that's why we decided to bring the fee ordinance. Am I correct, Mr. Street? All right, so y'all received this fee ordinance in your packet. And the red line was all the changes, and I hope that y'all had a chance to look them over. James, do you want to say anything else about this ordinance before we move on?
I can, Madam Mayor, I'd like for Mr. Kidd, we need to read the intent, so I'll do that as well.
Okay, great.
An ordinance to amend previous fee schedule ordinances to establish fees for city services, permits, inspections, and miscellaneous items. Provide penalties for violation and to repeal all ordinances or portions thereof in conflict therewith. As the mayor just said, this fee ordinance goes back, I believe, to the 90s. It's been quite some time since any type of updates have been done. The fee ordinance encompasses, we generate money 2 ways, either taxes, fees, permitting, et cetera. Beyond the taxes, and this encompasses everything from general fund to our enterprise fund and board of trash. On the general fund side, obviously, we're not looking to make money, but we certainly don't want to lose money. As Alex said, there are some things that we're losing money on. On the enterprise fund, water trash, we can actually make money. But again, as you see with that, we are losing money. Of course, a question was asked, well, the revenue is up, but the expenditure are higher. What's going on? Well, the revenue's up because we have more people here. We have growth, and those are our usual fees. And so when we're looking at, when I say the rate fees, water rates, trash rates, et cetera. So when we were looking at this, again, trying to figure out ways to try to change that imbalance, the first attempt was not to try to raise rates, water rates, trash rates. So we started looking at things that, what are these specialty things that are going on? What are the things that we're offering that we're not charging or we're undercharging? So as you look through this, a lot of these items, some even incidental, your charges for copy. If you bought toner lately for your copy machine, it's going up. Paper goes up. I think we spend about $300 a month for these, all these really wonderful, fancy, all-in-one copiers that everybody likes to have. So as you see that, I mean, some of those, a lot of the things that we do on the permitting side, and I had Jim here, there's a lot of permits that we've done in the past that we don't even charge a fee for, he goes and looks at. Really, anything that, and the question was asked about self-sufficiency, for example, like in permitting. That is always a goal, that you have your building permitting folks. Is there enough fees coming in to kind of justify their salaries and expenditures? So really what we're looking at is a flat, at minimum $25. If Jim has to go out and look at something for his hourly salary, his time, et cetera, again, we're not trying to make money, but we're at least, we don't want to lose money. So we're trying to at least get back in break even mode. So as you look at that, again, water rates, again, I just want to specify that we did not at this time we tried our best not to have to try to raise rates. I mean, who knows in the future, things continue to go up, but at this present time, we did not. We really wanted to better define how we were charging these fees. If you look at solid waste, let me back up a little bit. I want to address the meter turn on, turn off. $10 is what has been charged forever. The city we are losing money on that. What we're having to pay manpower now just to be competitive. You take a guy off what he's doing, he's making $2 an hour. By the time it takes him 15 minutes to get to somebody's house. But it takes him 15 minutes to cut it off, make sure that the meter stops turning, so that, and then by the time he gets in the truck, 15 minutes to go someplace else, we paid 45 minutes for a $10 fee. That does not include the fuel, the wear and tear, and everything else that goes into that. Another thing too, if these after-hour calls is where we really take a beating. We get calls from time to time. Somebody comes in, hey, I thought I was coming in Monday, but my plans changed. They come in, it's 10 o'clock on a Saturday night. Oh my gosh, my water's off. They call the non-emergency number. We send a guy comes in by order, so they get 4 hours of overtime. You know, so we're paying a guy $150, $170 for 4 hours of overtime to come in for a $10 fee. So there's a reason for that. We have been taking an absolute beating on that. So again, some of this is we're just trying to get into break even mode. Any questions on that right there? That's the rationale behind that.
I have a question. What is NP on page 7?
Oh my gosh. That has to do with soil erosion permits.
NPDES permit.
From pollution. Yes, that has to do with typically larger developments where you're disturbing like over an acre of land, primarily commercial. That's a rare occurrence. As you know, being a residential community, we don't have a lot of commercial, but in the event that we do have something going on.
We're gonna get $40. Thank you. All right.
So, you know, again, the intent is that we're losing money. So we're trying to get away from that. On the solid waste side, but again, the intent was to keep the rate the same. There's a lot of things that we have done that need to be better defined. Of course, we're gonna talk about the trash ordinance here in a little bit. But right now, the way our ordinance is written, if you put out bags of trash, the first 15 minutes are free. By the time we mobilize, Jerry and those guys, they have a program of work they do every day. So when we get that work order, they have to get off what they're doing to go somewhere, load up 350, whatever. We're absolutely losing money on that 15-minute free deal. So the only change to that would be is that it's just $100 per hour. Because the way the ordinance is written is after the 15 minutes is $25 an hour, but it's still gonna be a $25 per 15 minutes, but it's $100 per hour. So as soon as we come up, the clock starts ticking. You just don't get the 15 minutes free anymore, if that makes sense. So, Again,
Is that gonna apply to the shipping service as well?
well, anything that we have to come up, pick up bags, we have to come up, pick up yard debris, anything. As soon as we roll up, the clock starts ticking. The 15 minutes is free. We're just losing money. Again, as you look at our fees, as the auditor said, we're not, you know, the expenditures, it all works together. So, if we're not making money, we're losing money. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
But you know, we moving into this, the solid waste.
Not yet. I was still talking about the fees. So again, the other thing too, if you look on the page about the remove of refuse containers, that has to do with if somebody puts out their trash cans and they leave them out 4 days, 5 days, which we do from time to time. The city has the ability to actually take that trash can from the road, put it back on the property, and that's a $30 fee. Obviously, if somebody's compliant, they'll never have to pay that fee. But, we do have that from time to time. And then the other thing, in our ordinance, if there is trash, if people leave loose trash, and we're talking about in the trash ordinance, if there's loose trash that is scattered on their property, dogs get into it, whatever the case may be. The way our ordinance is written, we have the authority as the city to go pick that trash up for flat $12. So we're changing that fee. If you don't let trash be scattered, the clock starts ticking when we get there, it's $100 an hour. Because we're having, you know, we're mobilizing the guys, equipment, we're paying labor, we're paying insurance, everything. Again, the intent is to stop losing money and update this, so.
Maybe we can hire Nan. Nan, you want to be hired for that?
And really, just anything, I mean, we try to be reasonable with this. But, and then the important thing is at the very end of it, under the short-term rental, the occupational license, $50. The initial license first year would be $250, and then the annual would be $250 per year, so,
I thought it was 300.
well, it would be 300 if you combine 50 plus 50.
But the $50 is a one-time license to do business in Sky Valley.
That should be an annual, is that correct? I mean, that's just. Well, I mean, we can. That or what we would want to call, would we want to call it an occupational / short-term rental license? That's been talked
Just a
about.
flat fee of 300.
Well, it just has annual license renewal, $250. It doesn't say about the occupation license being renewed.
And then.
We went with the occupation license because the people doing this are a business, and so we're treating them in this sense like any other business license, so they would have to have the $50 occupation.
So I think that we need to make sure that there's an occupational license renewal.
We can add that, and that'll be adjusted and
Right.
noted and advertised accordingly by second reading.
Okay. I saw a hand back here. Yes, ma'am. You'll stand up, give us your name.
Jennifer Umby, 34 Thunderhead Lane. Do you ever relocate water, turn off and on? We are on Thunderhead Lane and our turn off is off Snowshoe and you have to go directly up a muddy hill to get to it, which is dangerous. You all in the past, if we've called, have done it at no charge, but it would be dangerous, especially at this time of year. I mean, it's unbelievably straight up a muddy hill with no trees, nothing to even hold on to. And then you have to try to wedge yourself. I mean, we do it most of the time.
Yeah, to relocate a existing meter is typically, traditionally been interpreted the same as in Manhattan. You're having to bring out manpower, you're having to essentially put another tap into the line. So there would be a charge for that. At present, it's a fifth, the tap fee is $2,500, proposed to go to $3,000. The relocation is $1,500. We recommend go $3,000. Again, it's essentially the same thing. You're doing the same thing. You're having to mobilize, you're having to use equipment, time, staff, and tap into the system. So, that would be the proposed charge to do that.
For us,
Well, for anybody. For
as opposed to the city being sued if I break my neck trying to turn my water line off. I mean, in the past, you all have done it at no charge because of the circumstances, so will that remain?
That's something that would just have to be, I mean, the water line, did you buy the house with the water line existing where it was at, the meter?
My parents did.
Okay, I mean, that's really a conversation away from this, but I mean, we're talking about fees at present, and I think that's kind of a buyer beware, you buy the house, that's where it's at, as far as you need to have it moved, you have to pay to have it moved.
I think we've been told it can't be moved, but I'll deal with that separately.
We will certainly talk about that away from there.
Could she use a third party plumber to do it if it's cheaper? Or does it have to be done by us?
There are things, that, I mean, it has to be done to city standards. I mean, certainly if we're, the initial tap needs to be by the city, but I mean, we really haven't addressed that, but, if that's something we wanted to add to this fee schedule, I mean, this is the time to do that, and then, you know, re-advertise and make the changes we go into the.
This question.
I don't know that, I don't know even that a private plumber would do it from this. I don't know.
I don't know, I mean, typically, they're, you know, by our water ordinance, they're not really supposed to do anything beyond up to the meter. Anything beyond the meter in our line, our distribution line is our responsibility, so we really don't get to have plumbers getting into that.
You might consider having a cutoff point right at your house. If that won't protect you if the water line leaks between the meter and the house, but you won't have any flood in the house.
We have one, I'll deal with it separately. I won't do that, council.
Thank you for the questions, thank you. Barbara,
Yes,
go back.
I was told,
And your evidence.
Barbara Kovac, 407.
Barbara, would you stand up?
Sure, I was told years ago, when I had my little on and off thing, that the city would prefer me not to go up there and turn that off, because there was a conflict between their meter, this meter, and whatever. So that's when I said, okay, who's gonna turn it off? To the city, $10 a ton. And I never touch that meter, the city does it. I would suggest to you, if I'm gonna go turn my own meter off, because I come and go and I always turn it off. Can you please give us an instruction on how to go, where to put the thing and where to turn it off? So we don't wreck your meter and you don't get in trouble with from the meter to my house and the line beyond it. Because I'm gonna do it, or my neighbors are gonna offer to do it, and that means you're gonna have amateurs cranking this thing.
Well, you know, we have a great communication specialist. I would imagine, Jerry and Cody not here, but I would imagine we could probably create a very short how-to video and have that uploaded.
We can put it on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. And on YouTube,
And I would prefer that you take neon green and paint on that rusty old meter where I put that thing to turn. So I can't possibly make a mistake. Because I don't wanna wreck that
You
meter.
should have a homeowner valve there.
Pardon?
You don't have to touch the meter.
Isn't there a valve that you turn?
She's referred to
There's a
the
separate
homeowner.
valve that's not on the meter.
The homeowner valve is
I don't know
what,
what you're
the
talking
homeowner
about.
valve is what is put in place. So our meters, they're radio, from a technology standpoint. The homeowner valves are put in place so that the meters are not tampered with. Those meters are very expensive and so we actually have specialized equipment we use to cut those meters on and off. However, if the homeowner wishes to turn
Yeah.
the gate valve and master valve themselves, each home has their own separate homeowner valve. I think that's what you're talking about. She's talking about homeowner valve.
Yeah.
And that's something that, again, if you want to cut your water on or off at your house using a homeowner valve, you can do that. This fee just happens, you request the city to do it.
Yes.
So that's where this comes into play.
I like the idea of video, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, we'll get pockets on that.
Do we have anybody online with any questions, Sharon?
Not at this time.
Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Ted, if you know the routine.
I continue to be Ted Zemankiewicz, and I continue to reside at 1164 Uptown Drive.
Good.
I read some of the ordinance changes, and I have some comments and some concerns. The first comment is I just want to thank Ms. Fleming for helping me and giving me some information, and her staff. It's been very helpful. Some of the concerns I have is I don't know if the council is aware of the magnitude of these changes that are being proposed compared to the existing rates. I don't know if you've had access to a comparison, and the percentage increases are, I'd say, very high, 20%, and some go as high as 200%, depending on item. And, you know, these are trying times for all of us experiencing inflation, high cost of gas and all that stuff. But just that you would be aware of it. Plus, I noticed if there is concern about attempting to balance the budget and recover and become a break-even system, matching the fee and the service provided. I see that there are a couple areas that have been, I guess, intentionally omitted. And those deal with alcohol and beverage licensing permits and fees. And also with housing and land development fees. And of course, these are substantial. And if we're having the growth as indicated by other representatives here, maybe those need to be adjusted as well to alleviate the problem.
We looked at the alcohol licensing as really, because there's really such few of that, it really was not gonna be that much of a game changer as far as revenue. I mean, maybe it was not intentionally done, it was just, well, I guess it was, the intentional thought was put into the rationale why that was not looked at, but from the grand, the big picture, it was not gonna be a substantial change. And again, these fees that we're looking, these are all what I call choice fees, meaning that you choose to have this done or have that done. The rates, again, we tried to stay away from the rates because everybody needs water. So that's, you really, and you can charge a minimum when you use the water or not. So, again, we spent a lot of time looking at this, we had conversations with departments. We've looked and so again, some of this is drastic, but then again, some of the drasticness may be from the fact that it's been so long since anything's been done, where these were maybe moving forward, if we were adjusting fees every couple of years accordingly, it wouldn't seem as drastic. But this has been something that has not been looked at in quite some time. And again, as we look at what we're paying in labor, manpower costs, et cetera, these are areas that we're losing money. So that's where, that was the intent with that, so.
Was it possible to implement some of these 100% increases or more over a reasonable period of time so it doesn't adversely impact your citizenry?
I mean, that's possible, again, so these are what I call choice fees. When you choose the bill, when you choose to request to have debris picked up, you choose to
have your trees pruned,
things like that. So it's again, I mean, this is the time as we're looking at this, before we get to second reading, if there's anything that wants to be changed, but there are some things that if we do not move forward with this, then we continue with the existing fee schedule that we have now. So the question would be, do you want to leave it as it is or tweak certain things? I don't know this, I'm not gonna put you on the spot, Doug, but you know, what degree can we do this without having to backtrack? But
and we gotta look at this ordinance is 26 years old, so obviously it does look drastic, you know, in increasing fees. But I hear what you're saying.
well, I suspect that some of the fees, the actual charges have been modified prior to 26 years, during the 26
Now,
years.
this is the ordinance we're living with right now.
Right, that's correct, but you're proposing that we go into effect October 1st. And like I said, even, I know paper has gotten more expensive, and Lord knows that ink has gotten outside of reasonable expectations. But the 233% increase in the copying charge. You just go to City Hall and you need a copy of a map, or you want a copy of some ordinance. But anyhow, it's just indicative of what casual observer notices.
It is, and we're not Kinko's or anything like that. I mean, that is a service we provide. Even like for a sample notary. But when I first got here, I think myself and this family were doing a little bit for notaries. We've had several other staff members become notary. We pay for that. We all have a program of work that we do every day. Of course, we want to provide every service we can, but again, when we're having to take a staff person and take them off their program of work to do this, we have to make sure that the city is being covered financially. So that's, and maybe some of this might be deterrence. Again, it's, if you can go down to someplace else and get something copied cheaper, you can. I mean, we're not in the copy business, but if somebody wants to make a copy, we're glad to do it, but again, we don't want to lose.
You're a city and you're handy. If you're looking for, specific ordinance or specific clause in the city code or whatever, you don't want to go to the library or the Gainesville and go to Kinko's or someplace. But like I said, I just point that out, and if you look at it, some of the increases are substantial.
They may be substantial, but I think they're competitive, and like you said, we have to take care of. The other thing is, as he points out, these are choices. Do you want this service? Then this is our price. If you want to buy gas, you go to Racetrack or you go somewhere else. It's whatever the price is. And I think that we've not paid attention to this for a long period of time. Now the time has come.
Well, some things are tree trimming, but sometimes that's not a choice. The tree is diseased or dying or getting out of hand. Globally, choices I agree with you. But there's also some things you cannot avoid.
Until now, there's not been any charge at all. We're gonna make it $25. I mean, it appears to be on a percentage basis, very high, but 26 years and so considered $1 a year. I mean,
Well, that's one way of emphasizing. So we could go back a year or two and $1 a year between now and you get 25 years from now.
Just think how old we'll be, we don't do this again for 26 more years. Okay, anybody, anything else that you want to say about this amendment to this ordinance, Jason, or anybody else? Anybody online need to say anything? All right. We gotta move on, or we're gonna have to spend the night. So this constitutes the first reading of this fee ordinance amendment, and we will have a second reading on the 19th of September, followed by a council meeting to talk about approving this particular amendment. All right, let's move on to approval to amend the Sky Valley Solid Waste Trash Ordinance. Would you do the honors of the first reading, Jason?
Mayor, this is an ordinance to amend previous solid waste ordinances to define terms and phrases relating to the collection and disposal of trash, waste and garbage, to regulate receptacles and containers for the same, to provide for the manner of preparation of the same for collection, to provide for the manner of collections of construction materials, trash, and garbage from commercial establishments and places of residence, to prohibit the deposit of trash, debris, or litter upon vacant lots, to prohibit burying refuse, polluting waters, or spilling trash, garbage, and other debris upon city streets, to provide for kinds of collection services to be offered, the days of collection, and a schedule of charges therefore, to provide penalties for violation, and to repeal all ordinances or portions thereof in conflict with. So this ordinance goes back to 1996, and the biggest thing about this that kind of drove this change is Last year, Steve Shields, and if anybody don't know who that is, he is our state risk management rep for GMA. And he came and he does, but I think he comes every 5 years and he does his annual inspections. And he left us with a lovely list of some things that were recommended and some things that we absolutely need to do. And one of the biggest concerns he had was these in-ground cans from a safety standpoint. And this ties into our liability, and this also ties into what we pay in terms of our insurance. Is these in-ground cans, it's a lot of, I think it's safe to say that most cities don't have that. They've been in the ground many years, they've been in disrepair, they fill up with rodents, spiders, water, trash, I mean, things. And we actually had an employee about a year ago, that stepped into one of these cans that was covered in leaves. He fell, he hit his head on a rock. He was treated, thank goodness he's okay. But one of the things that Mr. Shields said is for risk management and to maintain the insurance, these things really need to go. So we didn't invite him up here today, but he said, I'd be more than glad to be the scapegoat, the bad guy for this, if anybody has any concerns. But really that needed to be redefined. Essentially that was an option that would need to be removed. And it just defines how trash would be picked up with a receptacle. You would be limited to 96 gallons. That's either one big can or two rollouts up to 96 gallons. That's a pretty big can. And then talk about how multifamily, they can either do the same or use these collective 8 cubic yard containers. So that's really the biggest thing that we really needed to, was to redefine or delete with these in-ground cans. And of course, there is a transition period for that. So if this were to be approved in September, we were proposing to give everybody till December 1st, to give them time to get cans, roll out cans. So, but again, this is this has to do with our liability or risk management. And there's other things that we've had to implement and that are separate from this that we have done, some administratively, some we have a brain problem for you all in the future as well. But that is the biggest thing there. The other thing we talked about, we do have problems where our guys go and pick up trash. These really flimsy bags tear, trash goes everywhere. We put the responsibility on the owner. You really need to make sure that you're using quality trash bags that are not going to tear. Because again, if they tear during the action of being picked up, and our guys have to take time to pick it up, the clock starts ticking. So things like that, again, it's just put responsibility back onto the property owner. Another thing too, I just want to clarify the collection time. That needs to be a little bit better defined, because the way it was written in our existing ordinance is that it says that trash collection is on Monday, or it says the next business or the next day. That's not always the case. If we get a bad winter storm on Monday and there's snow on the ground until Friday, then obviously we're not picking up trash on Tuesday. So we changed that and just say the trash will be picked up the first day that it's available. Of course, we would get those notices out. Again, we want to just remind people, you should not have your trash cans out before 6 a.m. and they need to be out by 8 a.m. to ensure collection. So we just wanted to better define that. And then other things as well, there's some beyond the approved cans, doing away with the in-ground cans. Wanted to better define what are we picking up in the trash collection program. That is going to be refuse, garbage, bag trash, et cetera. Anything else, yard debris, bags of leaf trash, those things, that is a special request. You call in the city hall, a work order is made, and you be charged for that. So hopefully you had a chance to look through that. But again, the biggest thing here is that according to our risk management reps with GMA, Georgia Municipal Association, we've got to do away with these in-ground cans. So
and how are we gonna do that?
we're just going to put, if you put after December 1st.
No, I mean the homeowner, you said we gotta get rid of it.
Well, I mean,
We need to fill
they
that.
can stay, but what I mean is, we're just gonna quit picking up trash through them. So
Alright.
if they want to take them out, they can. If they want to crush them down, they can. If they want to, but essentially, all we're saying is that we're not gonna recognize that as a way, you're gonna have to bring your trash out in a roll-out can for us to pick it up.
Yes, I have a quick question. I know when Kathy and I first moved here, that was the plan, that was what you did, you buried it. So we bought 2 cans and buried them in a fluorescent rock. And there was rumblings then, the city council's going back 18 years, that they were gonna do away with them because of liability purposes. So we pulled them out and filled in the holes ourselves. The city put them in. So when we heard that they're gonna do what without them, we pulled them out and filled them in.
Well, this is not written to require people to remove them. If they can stay there. If the resident wants to take it out, they can. We're just saying that if you put trash in that receptacle, we're not gonna pick trash up anymore. You have to bring your trash out and roll out can. That's all this does. This does not require anybody to physically remove those cans. If the owner chooses to do this so they can, we're not requiring that. We're just saying that because maintain our risk management and our safety of our employees and maintain our competitive insurance rates, if we're gonna pick the trash up, it's gotta be in a roll-out can.
You want a side business, Bruce?
No.
Yeah.
You prove that we can ask questions.
Yes, sir.
Number one is how are we going to spread the word on this? Because this is gonna affect everybody in Sky Valley.
We can do like with MailChimp, we can have we have signs posted. That's another reason why we're recommending that this would not go into effect immediately December 1st. We will do every due diligence to put out a campaign to let people know this. That's why we're looking at this time frame to give people time to do that, because we can advertise that in our water trash bills. We can have signs posted.
Okay, just that we thought about it.
Yeah, we have, yes. Again, that's why there's 2 things. If you look at this, some of this will go into effect upon the mayor's signature or October 1st. That aspect would not go into effect in December 1st because we knew there would need to be time to get the word out to people.
Okay, other question is, section 3030 yard waste. Are we no longer going to pick up branches and things like that in your yard?
We will, but that's gonna be a charge to do that.
I disagree.
I disagree too.
That's the service that Sky Valley's been providing. I don't think there are people that abuse it. And all they do is they come by with a skid steer, get one. Well, what are we paying our taxes
That can certainly, is a pleasure to this council. That can't be removed from that. It can be on my side.
Can I ask you a question on that? Yeah, because that's a big issue of trimming trees and so forth. And some of us do it ourselves, we put it on the side of the road and then you come back and they chop it up. Is that part of the service cost you're talking about? Because that's something that's been going on.
To maintain the $23 trash fee would be the collection of bag trash and refuse cans only. That would be, the other would be through a work order, where you call in, because right now, the first 15 minutes is free. Again, when again, property tax funds, general fund, enterprise fund, fees, funds, water, trash service. So, yes, it's all interrelated, but when you look at making money, losing money, if we continue going that way, if we look at, well, our trash service pays for that, we can continue that route, but it's revenue lost. The only difference is that the first 50, you just wouldn't get the first 15 minutes for free. But again, that's the pleasure of this council. If y'all want to, we can certainly address this now. Am I missing anything, Doug? I'm not putting you on the spot or anything.
Ms. Naya, if you'll state your name and address, say your piece.
Nan Anders, 95 Jimmy Peak Lane. To Tim's point, at some point, the city does provide services through taxes. all right, if we're gonna get condemned or fined or whatever for not trimming and keeping our yard trash in control. I mean, I think that's something we want to encourage people to do on a regular basis, to keep limbs off the streets, to keep trash out of your yard. And I was under the impression that the city did, as part of our services, come on a routine basis and pick up limbs and yard trash. And to me, that just seems to be a reasonable part of our basic city service, garbage service, in a city that's in a mountainside with trees and limbs. I just think that. Now, if you're talking a delineation of, you're taking out half of a tree, I understand that needing an extra fee. But just regular yard trimming, that's my take on it. Because again, we could turn around and be fined for not maintaining our yard.
Well, again, the rationale is, again, anybody that was here, we heard all it. Our enterprise fund, water trash is where we can make money. We're not making money. So if we continue the service, there's two ways. You change the fees, or you change the rates. And we can continue on, but again, it just affects
Or
a
you
lot of
try to
time.
minimize.
We just went through a process of raising virtually every fee that we have.
And that's how it is.
Try and keep the solid waste fee at $23 that it's been for a long time. If that's not making money. Why would we want to cut a service? I mean, look at the age demographic that we have here. If we don't have the chipping service, then guys my age have to cut up everything and put it in bags, and even then we have to call to have. I don't think we should be cutting services. And there's gonna be a publicity thing here. I'm really proud of what we've done with the short-term rental ordinance. We've had public hearings where we've had feedback, which has been listened to and has created changes. I think we ought to be doing the same thing with this. And we can let people say, would we rather go to a work order basis, or, I mean, I can put off calling the city to come do something for, weeks and weeks. If monthly, the chipper goes around and it's automatic and I don't have to call the city.
Tim, we don't chip anymore, we burn.
That's another subject.
I've got a question and then a comment. As far as the yard waste goes, is there an estimate of the percentage of property owners that use the city to pick up yard waste? Is it the vast majority? Is it a few?
I don't know what's that, man. I'm sure we could probably.
Because if it was the vast majority of it, then perhaps what the city would need to do is just go up on the base rate for the garbage.
Absolutely.
If it's 10%, then no, you should probably keep it as a special set aside fee, because the 10% are asking for a service that 90% aren't going to. So I don't know what the numbers are, but that's something to consider. Second would be, as Jason has pointed out, these enterprise funds, it is actually illegal for you to set rates that are below cost. You cannot have your general fund subsidize your water fund or your other enterprise fund. So what we're trying to do here is actually make it legal, because for the longest time we have set the rates in such a way that basically your general fund is subsidizing, possibly subsidizing these other funds. So you do need to increase it so that you're not doing that, because we actually have a duty under the law to not make a killing, but you can't lose money on it, essentially. So that's what we're trying to do here.
State the law again.
Cities have a duty to operate their enterprise funds in a way so they do not lose money. Because otherwise you are taking general fund dollars and essentially subsidizing your water fund. You can't do that. You need to set the rates at a rate high enough to cover all of your costs and expenses, and then try to make some profit on top of it. They need to be self-sufficient, essentially. And so my understanding is that for the longest time, we have set rates and fees at a rate that, or at least from our auditor, were not self-sufficient. And so it was essentially being covered by our general fund, which is property taxes, which you can't really do. So you need to set these rates and these fees at a level that you at least break even. You can't lose money.
Please.
Let's go back.
Barbara Kovac, 407 Pleasant Mountain. Why have you thought of raising my garbage rate so I don't have to make a call? Just raise it and I'll pay it, and then you pick up my trash and my branches.
Well, that is the other option, again,
I just think it would be so much easier and less administrative, less, it wouldn't shock the
Well,
community.
we have some of the highest rates, I know our water rates, I think we're our minimum.
I'm
is like
talking
40.
about-
I know I'm talking about, but in relation, I think the minimum in Clayton is like $23 for water, ours is always 40. We have some of the higher rates, again, that was the original intent, was to try to not mess with rates. Then you go with these choice services. And I know what you're saying about cutting expenditures, we track expenditures every day. I use the word deferred maintenance, and that's the most politically correct way I can say that. We have a garbage truck that's 11 years old, we have a recycle truck that's 21 years old. We have, manpower to be competitive, I mean, fuel. Now, we do get, thank goodness, we do, since the SES, we're not being charged on what we're sending down to the landfill. But every day, just like in your personal lives, costs are going up. It's, you kind of, you either have to start cutting things and services, and that's what I'm trying to do. Again, the important takeaway from this is that, all of this is tied in together. The fee ordinance is tied into the trash, it's tied into short-term rental. If there's something that we want to look at this, I mean, this, now's the time to make any changes if we need to, but we're gonna.
I think Dan's
Dan,
got his hand up.
Or 20 minutes.
We like to have you, hold your arm up.
The only point I wanted to make is, we pay these bills one way or another. You're either gonna pay them through the user fees, or you're gonna pay them through your property taxes. You choose. It's not like you're deferring it to some corporation out there somewhere. Period.
Maybe now, maybe later.
Uh-huh.
But
All right, so does our enterprise fund includes solid waste, correct? All right, so we have we lost money on our enterprise fund?
We are, as you saw in the audit, we are.
Okay.
we have a balance in that fund of $1,377,581.
That's what's in the bank now, but you have to take away,
Our monthly,
you have to take away what has been uncommitted on the water and trash. So it's probably is closer to about $800,000, but as every year we lose money, that just gets whittled away. So it's.
and Doug says that's illegal. We are violating Georgia law, is that what you're saying?
You need to at least break even.
Okay.
I'm not gonna support this if I'm gonna have to call somebody when I get once every month, every other month, I have a few branches that I picked up. And either that or I take them like you can open up the burn pit and I'll haul them back down there in my truck and the burn pit.
And the burn pit was a cost savings measure. That's not getting into that, what we're dealing with here, but when we were looking at trying to cut costs, that was a means, as a way to do that, because that has to be disposed of somewhere. Some things you can take, and some things you can't take with the county.
Jason, could you provide us with an estimate of what the rate would go up to in order to break even in those separate, the water and in the trash? You can't do it right this minute.
I'm sure we can run some numbers.
Before we make a decision, but I'd like to know what it really is.
And I think Doug's suggestion of the percentage of the residents that call for the tree and debris.
We do have a work order module that I'm sure we can kind of go, because usually when those are called in to track that, it takes a little time, but,
How about we suggest that, I know we talked about having our second reading on September the 19th, that we have a work session to talk about this in addition, with the additional information. Are you all okay with that? Let's just go ahead and schedule that, so we have more information more data to base our decision on and share.
I just want to say the important thing is we move forward, whatever direction the council goes. The biggest thing is that we have got to address the in-ground cans,
Right.
because that's a mandate from our.
Amen.
Okay, Sharon.
Someone's asking online, do the trash cans have to be animal resistant?
Yes, they need to be.
Latching or something?
The way that it's written,
That's ordinance, it has to be. Otherwise, it falls under nuisance.
Doesn't mean that they have to be like bear.
We tried that a few years ago, remember? And the cost of the can was crazy.
There's no such thing as bear.
That's probably true.
Yeah, we have one down at Over. There's another one down there at Mud Creek. Well,
Mayor really wants to get into it.
the way this is written, each single family residence shall provide a maximum of 2 approved refuse containers, which shall be constructed of heavy plastic material not to exceed 96 gallons total. Each container shall be equipped with suitable handles, tight fitting covers or lids with hand grips, and shall be watertight and animal resistance. It doesn't go into bears, but it does need to be something that.
They have to work for it.
crows and dogs.
Yeah. You would hope that we could keep the dogs out of it, yes.
I'm assuming here that only applies if you use the services of the trash pickup. We have never done that. We always take our trash to the same container. So I don't have a place to put 2 trash cans, you don't intend to buy 2. So it's not a law, you have to have it. It's just that if you're gonna utilize this is what you have to do.
Yes.
Okay, I'm good with it.
And you're not the only one. A lot of houses, you know, there's a bridge to get to the house.
Yeah, you can't get to
There's
the bottom.
there's no place for, nobody's got
Yeah.
places, we've never built places to put our garbage cans.
Yeah.
And one of the things about the in-ground was that you never had to take your garbage cans back to the house and get them out of sight, because they are out of sight.
All right, so we are going to schedule a work session
Do
to
that.
continue this conversation.
We will advertise that.
Right.
If this is gonna serve as the first reading, I'd like to say some other things, but if we're gonna redo it, so we'll be doing another first reading later.
Well, it'll be the second reading, but we'll have a work session
Okay,
to tie into the second reading. Does that make sense, Jim?
well, let me. We can't bury the things in the ground, even
Right,
if they're gonna be barefoot. I mean,
right.
don't get me wrong. The in-ground has been failing for 20 years because the raccoons and everybody have gotten it in. If we take them out, you know, and they get all covered up with leaves, there's still a liability issue with these empty holes in the ground. And, you know.
I can tell you, when we pulled ours out, we filled them.
Yeah, of course you did, and it's expensive with all the gravel and
You know,
everything.
I guess that
It's
it's
a
depending
pain.
on your areas.
Yeah, I think the city should consider offering that service to the homeowners. Not everybody's young and strong like Bruce. Exactly.
I don't think that's a city thing. I think we should get a contractor who you could call. And let them do it.
That would be
City
fine,
needs
that'd be
to
the
do
same
that.
thing.
I have another question.
Okay,
Is the council approving this first reading of this ordinance, or are they going to table it?
we're not approving it, we just had
Okay.
it.
Well, with this ordinance provides that the owner has to provide an adequate and suitable receptacles and containers capable of holding all such waste materials capable of holding. And we're not saying that you can't put garbage out in a plastic bag anymore. We're not saying you have to put, we're saying later on, all accumulations of refuse and trash will be contained in plastic bags and durable. But we're never saying that the plastic bags have to be placed in the container, which I think is the intent.
It is, I
We're trying
mean,
to solve a lot of problems.
and I know that there are people who put bags out at the road, and they, of course, they run the risk of animals getting into it. I think the spirit of the thought, of course, if we need to add something, we can do that and make that change prior to the second reading. But obviously the intent is for them to utilize the receptacle, since we're saying that's the only way. I mean, we need to add that, we can, if you think that needs to be further clarified, that can be added between now and second reading.
Yeah, because I think I can argue that I can put plastic bags out at 8 AM, even though my trash isn't collected until 4.
However, you will be assessed a fee if it was torn up.
Right, as I well should, and I'd be happy to have that fee be $100 every time you have to come out, because it takes 15 minutes to get out, 15 minutes back. And if they can clean it up in 5 minutes, fine, but there's a fine aspect that I want to discourage anybody from doing that and having garbage strewn around. That's
But wouldn't the
community.
fine aspect of it discourage people? I mean,
That's what I'm
why
hoping, yeah.
Could we simply just
are we
say,
duplicating something that we already have established?
could we just add each single family resident shall provide and utilize
Yes.
a maximum, I think, would that suffice?
And deposit garbage or whatever.
I think you're making more out of it. I put my garbage out in bag.
I agree.
Occasionally, a crow will get in there, tear the bag up,
Yeah.
and I go clean it up myself.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting the city to go out and do that for you.
But that may not always be the case, especially with some of the timeshares and the condos, because I've watched bears drag plastic bags across and up into the woods. So, but I mean, have we already established, you can put the bags out there, if it has to be cleaned up by the city, it's X dollars. We're there.
Well, if you want, I mean, there's really two ways. We could say that each single family residence shall provide and utilize, or we could say the shall is mandatory. Or we could say each single family resident may provide, then that would give them the choice of using the bags.
We could do a video.
We don't
showing
want people to
somebody
use the
walking
bag.
out and putting the plastic bag into the container that we're referring to.
And then the bear comes by.
I think we're there.
Okay. All right. Barbara, did you want anything else?
Yes, please. If you're gonna do this, have you considered shopping for a good price on these containers?
If we did,
And it will be uniform, so we don't get cockamamie.
we got a price.
We have.
About a year and a half ago, we found a company, that we had to, they were essentially gonna be about $50 each for these big cans. And they would be stamped with the city logo, like you see here. And the thought was, okay, well, they was going about $50,000 to buy all these cans. We were gonna buy like 1,000 of them. And so, that was something we talked about at one time. I'm sure that price now is probably $60 or $75, but with things going up, but that is something that we did look at, trying to come up with a unified can. And a can that our garbage truck, the lift is compatible with our lifter. So,
And the wind will not blow it down the driveway, so they're all over the streets.
yeah, and just for the sake of discussion,
Oh, that one.
they gave us an example. This is a smaller version, but, and we can get these different colors, but a 96 gallon would be bigger. I think this is around maybe 40. When you get to be in Boss, of course, it's got the, where the tipper can pick up. Yeah, this is one, this was actually a sample that was given to us by this company that we utilize here at City Hall. So I just realized it was out there.
But that's not their proof, is it?
So why, if we require everybody to have the trash and bags, the guys just reach in and throw the bag in the truck.
They can.
Then shouldn't that be what everybody?
We also have a service where our city personnel will come up to your house and get your garbage. That's an extra fee that's already.
If you're disabled.
Well, I don't know if it says disabled.
You're
it says-
required to show that.
It's an extra $7 a month.
Yeah, you can ask for that service, pay for that service. Yeah. Okay, we got a lot more to talk about.
I got another question on this. The agenda says consider the approval to amend these things. Does that require a vote by the council to approve? And it could be a question for the city lawyer.
Yes, it has to go through the approval process by the council.
With 2 readings. Okay.
Would you want us to go ahead and set that date for the work session? I know the meeting's on the 19th, would that be the 12th, week before?
Week 4 is the 12th. Would y'all want to set that right now? For our work session?
What time is that? 10 o'clock.
On the 12th, is that okay with y'all?
Yes.
Yeah,
September 12th.
and if we need to have a work session on anything else, we'll throw it in there too.
Yes, we can certainly, and we'll advertise accordingly.
Okay.
What time did we say?
10 o'clock.
10 a.m.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's move on so these people can get home by dinner. So we appreciate, I mean, this is what this is for us all to talk this over. These aren't any issues that haven't been talked about by councils probably for 20 years, but we're tired of kicking the can down the road and we want to be legal. Okay. Consider approval of a purchase of 2023 Ford Explorer Interceptor police car. We discussed this at a previous meeting. If you'll just give a very brief rationale for why we're talking about this, Jason, and what the funding.
Can you pull that back up, Sharon, would you mind? Just a photo, so people can kind of see what we're talking about. Also, the one that we have now is a 22 model. And, Officer Clark, Dottie Clark, she got Officer of the Year in Augusta Brady County. This is what we have. We're looking at going with something identical to this. Dillard, Clayton, the county, these Ford Explorer Interceptors. As you got my memo, received my memo, as we all know, post-COVID, different world. State contracts, all that out the window. It just took due diligence, getting on the phone, calling these folks, trying to find one. And our resources that typically have them, we don't have anything, don't know when we're gonna get one in. Brandon, which is down in South Georgia, actually they have about 30, but they have one Lightning that we want to go with. So essentially, as I mentioned earlier, Officer Edwards is coming back. Right now, with the chief and 3 officers, we have 4 officers, 4 vehicles. When he comes back, and we're thinking, Chief, what, September?
Yes.
And as you know, it takes time to equip these vehicles. You have to get them, the cage, everything in. If we don't do anything, we're gonna have 5 officers sharing 4 vehicles. We're gonna be the thermal hotspotting. And that just leads to excessive wear and tear. The 2 Subarus that we sold, y'all surplus a few months ago, very pleased. I want to thank Karen for that. She did a great job getting that on Gov Deals. We actually made $22,000 on those old 2 wore out Subarus. So so having fun in this. It's approximately $44,900. I forget, it was 22,000 something that we got in surplus. So that funds almost half of it. We have right at $18,000 left over in SPLOST equipment that we have intentionally been holding on to. And that's, and also, by the way, SPOS equipment is how we bought this vehicle back, last year. So that, between the 18, there's 40,000 of that. And then we have about $1,500 in ARPA money, if you, as you all recall, we received about 102,000 of that, excuse me, 101,000. But we spent 100,000 on the southern road, that left about a little over $1,000, but with interest over the past 2 years, it's now about 1,500. So there, and then we have about 3,500 in a previous SPOS that goes back many, many years ago. And from speaking with our auditor, that money, because all those projects have been matured, that leftover money is now uncommitted. So we actually have the money between about 4 different sources. We can buy this vehicle outright. And then the equipping would just have to come out of the police general fund, budget for small equipment. But, we do know we were gonna need a vehicle. We were looking to, add that as a planned capital purchase for next year's budget. But however, if we go ahead and buy this now, then we've been ahead of the game. So,
Is that in the police budget for this year? Does he have that money for that?
for the,
For the equipment?
well, that's probably going to be about $8,000 or $10,000 cheap by the time you buy the,
You got that in your budget?
it's gonna be close, but we can, I think we can find it. So, but, again, it's,
Of course, that's an
well, I may have to move some money between line items, but I can do that.
Okay.
But the good thing is that based on, we knew this was coming down the line. Thank goodness we do have money that's available that will pay for this without directly taking it out of the general fund.
I need a motion to approve the purchase of this Ford Explorer Interceptor police car.
I move we buy the police car.
Thank you, Jim, second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Bruce. All right, any discussion? Yes.
Have a question. We had a, is that a call? We have a plan scheduled, renewal of vehicles, you know?
Capital event.
Yeah.
Capital.
And so this is kind of a surprise because it wasn't scheduled, right?
That's correct. Yeah, and really that all kind of goes hand in hand because, again, talking about Mr. Shields on the in-ground cans, there was a recommendation that we create this program because we did not have anything, but because we did not have a system or plan of trying to do qualifications to replace, we found ourselves in a situation where we had these old, they just got to the point that they were inoperable because we had them for so long. So that's.
I get that.
Yeah.
And we were gonna dispose of them because they weren't good.
Yes.
They weren't good. But we didn't say at that time, we're gonna have to replace them with something else. We didn't say that. So we sold those cars based on the fact that they weren't useful.
Yeah, well, at that time, I mean, that was not intentionally omitted. I think when I was done a couple of months ago, Officer Edwards' return has been kind of a moving goalpost.
Understand that, and we're gonna buy this vehicle next year.
Yes.
So what we're saying now is, we're gonna move this purchase up to this year, and we're not gonna have one next year.
That's the plan unless, of course, we haven't really gotten to the budget yet, but, we do have police cars that we'll need, if we don't buy one next year, certainly the year after that, as we get into this.
Well, that's what I'm saying, I thought we had a schedule that we figured out when we would be, and what, how long we would be. Assuming that, you don't run into a tree or something, but, I was a little bit surprised by this purchase right after we just sold those two that we didn't need.
Well, again, the plan was to buy one next year, but however, what the auditor said, we had these unexpected revenue sources. I was hoping we were gonna get $5,000 for these vehicles. When we got to looking at our budget, or we got looking at our funding, and I realized that we had existing funding in place that was uncommitted, that could be used to purchase it. And they're not getting any cheaper. I mean, this vehicle here was I think it was $40,000. This was almost 45. It might be 50 when we get to January. So it's really up to however y'all want to do this, but I was just saying that we have money in place now. And we can certainly have those conversations as we prepare for next year's budget to replace. But again, we just found ourselves in a situation where we have uncommitted money. And the auction overperformed, where instead of we could go ahead and buy, be ahead of the game, so that's, I can't go over this.
And I guess the only question I have is, do we need 2 interceptors? And if we do, why?
Well, the Interceptor is just a package that plays like I think the Durangos might be called the Pursuit. Each manufacturer has it. Now, keep in mind, these vehicles do not have the turbocharged engines like Dillard that are 5,000 or 6,000 miles more.
That was my
Yeah.
question, so you answered.
Yeah, so these are more suited to what we have here in Sky Valley. Yeah, they're not out to chase 100-mile-per-hour boats.
Any other comments or questions from the council? Okay, we'll call for the question. All in favor of approving the purchase of this Ford Explorer Interceptor police car, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, purchase is approved. All right, now for the public forum, because I think that most of our people have either left or are asleep, so I'm not sure we're gonna have any comments, but at this time, if y'all would like to say anything, feel free. Thank you, Barbara, for the information. Thank you, Barbara. Thank y'all for sticking in there with us, and thank you, council, for our marathon meeting. It just kind of worked out that way that we had to do this. I promise, no, I can't promise. We'll try not to have this happen.
You may set it right.
We may set it right. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All right, Tim. And Mr. Allred, all in favor?
Aye.